A select few filmmakers put their stamp on the industry in such a way that their name becomes a certain style. Spielbergian, Kubrickian, Tarantino-esque, Smithsonian,
Gorlami.
But the man we're talking about today doesn't reflect a style. It's a full-blown genre. Shyamalan. From the moment he learned about plot twists, M. Night Shyamalan has captivated, amazed, and bewildered filmgoers for nearly 3 decades. His penchant for late story reveals and unmistakable voice has earned him his very own corner of the industry, allowing him to fully self-finance his movies with zero studio interference. But the road getting there has had a few, how do we put this lately? Potholes, ranging from, whoops, I didn't see that speed bump, but it's all good, to. So that's what my check engine light meant. Whether you love him, loathe him, dread, or look forward to his new releases, you can't deny it. M. Night Shyamalan, a curious case. With his parents emigrating to Penn Valley, Pennsylvania from India when he was just 6 weeks old, Manoj Nelliyathu Shyamalan held the hopes, dreams, and expectations of his parents. His father is a neurologist and his mother is an OBGYN. So it only makes sense that this child of doctors wanted nothing to do with the stethoscope, but instead a career in the arts, filmmaking to be more specific. And he wasn't just gonna coast on vibes alone. He had a creative drive that was only matched by his book smarts. When attending Catholic school as a youth, he once scored the highest grade in religion class, and the man wasn't even Catholic. At just 22, he released his debut feature, Praying with Anger, a semi-autobiographical feature about Knight's experience of being a child of immigrants as his Western American values crash with that of the ones that brought up his parents. There's not much to say about it other than that it's his debut, one that's characteristically written, directed, produced, and starring the man. Being a writer-director will go on to be his defining trait, holding his voice and artistic integrity in the highest regard. Doing such a thing is always a challenge, and it was especially challenging with his next film, Wide Awake, where Shyamalan clashed with executive producer Harvey Weinstein and his intention to recut the film to his own liking. Shyamalan wouldn't budge, so the film was put on ice until its eventual release in 1998, a full 3 years after principal photography wrapped. And the only reason it got released at all was because he sold the spec script for his next film. David Vogel was, for lack of a better term, on one. The then president of production at Walt Disney came across Shyamalan's script and loved it so much that he bought the rights for it for $3 million with the added stipulation that M. Night would direct. Vogel did all of this without Disney's backing or approval, which led to him getting dismissed from his position as president of production. Disney later sold the production rights to Spyglass Entertainment, keeping the distribution rights and 12.5% of the eventual box office earnings. Even still, the damage was done. This wild script, written by an untested filmmaker, was gonna be directed by, well, that untested filmmaker. The twist here, though, is that M. Night Shyamalan knew exactly what he was doing here, and David Vogel knew that this script was something special, and it was indeed something special. The Sixth Sense is as close to cinematic perfection one could get. It's a haunting, melancholy, frightening, tragic gem of a film. Shyamalan writes and directs with the confidence of a veteran master. The shot composition here is beautiful enough on their own, but they're even made more impressive when you realize just how much information and storytelling he packs into a shot. Bruce Willis, Haley Joel Osment, and Toni Collette, along with the rest of the cast, bring their A game here, perfectly selling the sadness and restlessness these characters feel throughout the film. But what really makes this film special is our man M. Night. Audiences were absolutely blindsided by the narrative's heft and this plot twist. You know the one. Melted audiences' minds in 1999. Plot twists weren't a new thing at that point in films by any means, but here Shyamalan gives the rest of the film the proper care and attention and love to stand in its own right, being a story of grief, love, and redemption. The final moments of the film don't shortchange your emotions, but validates them, resulting in a narrative that will make your jaw drop mere moments after you were crying your eyes out. The Sixth Sense grossed over $670 million against a $40 million budget, receiving 6 Coincidence? Oscar nominations, including Best Picture, Original Screenplay, and Director for Shyamalan. The Sixth Sense was not only a film sensation, but it laid the groundwork for what makes M. Night Shyamalan the storyteller he is today, warts and all. Let's take this time to look at the man's style before we look at the rest of his career because, well, something tells me we're going to experience some turbulence down the road. Or flight. I love misusing transportation analogies. As I alluded to earlier, M. Night's defining trait lies within his writing. He's a certified writer-director, meaning that everything in his films, from the dialogue to the visuals, is a product of the man's sensibilities as a storyteller. And yes, the majority of his films involve some kind of late-game plot twist or reveal, often recontextualizing the film we just seen. The execution of these reveals can vary in quality, but they nevertheless give his new releases intrigue and excitement, since we know that something here ain't right. Shyamalan tends to add a supernatural element to his stories, establishing his characters and their more grounded lives before showing us what fresh hell he's cooked up this time. He also centers on families, usually broken ones by way of financial hardships or a missing parental figure, and it's that broken family element that becomes the main narrative thread for most of his films. His dialogue can be hit or miss, especially in his more recent films. We can chalk it up to the need to give his films that narrative subtext while also progressing the plot and above all, make an entertaining film. So at their best, Shyamalan films are tightly written stories whose dialogue are simultaneously developing its characters, establishing the eventual plot twist / reveal, and have high entertainment value, i.e. sauce. It's a delicate juggling act that, at its best, makes for some generational moments in films. At its not so best, well, we get...
I was in a pharmacy a while ago. There was a really good-looking pharmacist behind the counter. Really good looking. I went up and I asked her where the cough syrup was. I didn't even have a cough. And I almost bought it. And I'm talking about a completely superfluous bottle of cough syrup.
Visually, M. Night loves crafting shots that ironically show, don't tell. Like Graham Hess's missing crucifix at the beginning of Signs, or the subtle hints of that reveal in The Sixth Sense. He likes using long takes as well to show how a supernatural entity can do its thing or hammer home the chaos of a certain situation. They usually look great too, making these shots gorgeous and wallpaper material in their own right. M. Night Shyamalan became a household name, and 2000's Unbreakable is that different, unexpected follow-up to his previous film. Shyamalan made the right move in veering away from the ghosts and supernatural elements of The Sixth Sense, while still giving this his polish and flair for the dramatic. It's the man's Jackie Brown, and sure, it didn't do the numbers that The Sixth Sense did, but it didn't need to. Here, we have something. A superhero film of all things that stands on its own, with many even preferring it over The Sixth Sense. Simply put, the man was on fire, where the Shyamalan name became the movie equivalent of the Nintendo seal of approval. His films were becoming an event, so much so that the August 2002 edition of Newsweek featured our man on the cover and dubbing him the next Spielberg. And it felt that way in 2002, with Signs being another box office and critical smash. It was bigger, more thrilling, scarier, had a greater sense of spectacle than his earlier films, while keeping his grip on the things that brought him to the dance. Signs showed that The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable weren't flukes, that M. Night was the real deal and wasn't going anywhere. And perhaps most importantly, Signs is the reason why the film industry has been stuckmanized for the last 15 or so years. Shout out to my boy Chris, man. Congrats on Shelby Oaks. Can't wait to watch it. The Sixth Sense catapulted Shyamalan in filmmaking stardom, but it saddled him with the expectation to surprise us again and again and again. What we have here is a paradox. How can you surprise someone who's expecting a surprise? Their guards are up now, looking all over the frame to try and catch that first sign of a twist. It can be fun, but it can also make audiences restless. The same is the case for the filmmaker, and this is where we get some turbulence. 2004's The Village is a good movie. It is. It makes good use of its all-star cast and is gorgeously filmed by the GOAT cinematographer Roger Deakins, and it also has my favorite score from any of Shyamalan's films, courtesy of the criminally underrated James Newton Howard. It just feels bogged down by expectations set upon by its predecessors. The lights had never been brighter here, and our man was here struggling to make a three-pointer in clutch time. And the reviews reflected that too, with Roger Ebert giving it 1 star out of 4 after giving Signs a perfect 4 out of 4. The wheels were starting to fall off. Lady in the Water didn't help things either, with critics and audiences dismissing the film as convoluted, indulgent, pretentious, especially with Shyamalan, who usually casts himself into small roles and minor cameos a la Hitchcock. Here he puts himself as some visionary author whose writing changes the world. I mean, who does he think he is? Like me with my Substack? The Happening happened, only adding fuel to the man's washed allegations. 2010's The Last Airbender is... well, where do I begin? It's a bad film in its own right, but the most painful part was how it butchered the amazing source material. Avatar: The Last Airbender, shout out 2000s era Nickelodeon. It felt like we were leagues away, planets away from the highs of The Sixth Sense and Signs. Never mind it didn't have a twist, it was missing the care and precision M. Night had in the early days. In 2013's After Earth, okay, at the interest of not sounding repetitive, I'm just gonna say it was another low point for this man's filmography, being remembered as this unsubtle, nepo baby charged attempt at trying to make Jaden Smith happen. So as far as spiritual sequels to The Pursuit of Happiness goes, this one misses the mark too. For all intents and purposes, it was over. It was so over. In a 2018 interview with Rolling Stone magazine, M. Night Shyamalan reflects on the hills and valleys that make up his career arc. Going from undeniable to unwanted, he was beginning to lose his confidence and his voice as a storyteller. The world of my industry decides I have no worth. I am a cautionary tale, a person who got lucky for a time but revealed himself to be a sham. I do not believe in myself. The article then describes a printout on a wall in M. Night's production company, one that had the names of all the execs who declined to finance or distribute his next film, 2015's The Visit, self-financing it on a $5 million budget with additional producing help from Jason Blum and Blumhouse, and went on to gross $98 million, and most of that money went into Shyamalan's pocket, giving him greater freedom to make the movies he wanted to make his way. Looking at that printout of all the names that said no to The Visit, he goes on to say that most of those execs no longer had a job. The Visit is the beginning of M. Night finding his stride after a string of commercial and critical failures. The fall from grace was over, finding something better than rave reviews or awards glory or critical acclaim. Absolute creative freedom. The rest of Shyamalan's filmography is, for better or worse, all him. He's financing all of his films, so he doesn't have to answer to studios or execs. It also means that he's prone to indulge in his weaker habits as a filmmaker. 2017 Split turned out to be a stealth sequel to Unbreakable, meaning that the man created an entire superhero cinematic universe, playing 4D chess with his plot twists now. The sequel to that stealth sequel, Glass, wasn't as good, with Split having the advantage of having that surprise element when no one really expected one at that point. Still, we got 2 sequels to Unbreakable, which is reason enough to celebrate in my opinion. 2021's Old is a classic example of Shyamalan presenting a really interesting and unique concept only to become undone by explanations and exposition that completely take away from the experience. Knock at the Cabin is, and I say this in the most complimentary way possible, is one of the best mid-movies I've seen in recent memory. Like, I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd, but let me tell you, it earns every single bit of those 3 stars. It's not particularly bad or great, it's good. Like good. And shout out Kiki's Delivery Service. If you know, you know. And Trap is a startling blend of horror and comedy, though I don't know if the horror parts are meant to be funny or the funny parts are meant to be scary. Either way, it's M. Night's latest camptastic edition of his pretty good era, and is also this fantastic showcase for Josh Hartnett's criminally underrated abilities as a lead actor. As it stands, M. Night Shyamalan is doing whatever it is M. Night Shyamalan wants to do. And for the film industry, that's a good thing. He's reached a place in his career where he has the freedom to do what he wants with the appropriate budget. At a time when decently budgeted filmmaker-driven films are in such a short supply, he's basically won the lottery here. I haven't even mentioned Wayward Pines and Servant, two shows that he heavily became involved with, both as executive producer and director for some episodes. That just shows the man's work ethic and his continuing influence in the industry, both in the big screen and small. The name M. Night Shyamalan has meant a lot of different things over the last 3 decades. Wonderkin, visionary, master, hack, fraud, has-been, but the man never gives up, continuing to release a film every 2 or 3 years. When other filmmakers can get stuck contemplating what their next move should be, Shyamalan takes the "fuck it, we ball" approach and runs with whatever idea he has next. That's something to admire and even aspire to. Filmmaking is a job at the end of the day, so you might as well clock in. Sure, there's discussions of diminishing returns, but I think we still hold him in high regard because we remember how he made us feel with his earlier films. He made us cry, pulled the rug out from under us so many times, even when he knew he was going to. We see those fingerprints, those habits and sensibilities all these years later, even if his current work doesn't quite reach the highs of before. What matters is that he tries again and again, excited by the prospect that he gets to do this silly little thing called filmmaking for a living. So we can use those words to describe him: wonderkid, visionary, master, hack, fraud, has-been. Whatever it may be, there's only one word that truly describes the man. The word that has become a genre unto itself: Shyamalan.